We have lots to talk about here in today's video, including all kinds of speculation for the offseason for the 16 teams not in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Today we're looking at the Red Wings, the Rangers, the Sabres, the Bruins, the Flyers, and the Predators. Plus, we have a couple of coaches already let go, which we'll discuss a little further here today. Plus, we have a signing in Edmonton, news from the waiver wire, and several key injury updates as well going into the Stanley Cup playoffs. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here this evening. It's been a pretty busy news day. Of course, today is a kickoff of the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. We had the first game, which was Winnipeg versus St. Louis. That game just finished before I sat down to record this video, with the Winnipeg Jets pulling out a big 5-3 victory. It was a pretty close game for the most part, with St. Louis having a 3-2 lead going into the third, when Winnipeg really tilted the ice here and to really dominated that period in an effort to come back. They scored, I think it was around 9 or 10 minutes left to go, with Alex Iafallo getting the tying goal, and then Kyle Connor got the winner with under 2 minutes to go as well, and a nice set play off of face-off. Face-off is one back to the D. They go D to D. They make the players kind of stretch out a little bit on the ice, rim it around down to Scheifele. Scheifele finds Connor for the one-timer. You could tell it was certainly a play that's been practiced. It's set play off the face-off for sure. And it was a beautiful goal from Connor for the win. Of course, then they add it. Another goal afterwards into the empty net, Adam Lowry, to seal things up. The St. Louis Blues did look like they had a good chance. They put up a really good fight, and this series could be a little closer and a little longer than some people thought. Of course, if you haven't already, make sure you have a chance to fill out your bracket and join our bracket challenge group on the NHL site. So certainly I'll put a link down in the pinned comment down below. So join our Top Shelf Hockey bracket challenge just for fun, to see who can best predict the playoffs here for the 2025 Stanley Cup and see who will win. So other news around the league today, Dryden Hunt of the Calgary Flames was on waivers. He's cleared, so he can be reassigned and has been to the AHL Wranglers to go with them for their playoff run. The Oilers today re-signed defenseman Ty Emberson, of course, who was picked up last year from the San Jose Sharks in the Cody Ceci trade. He gets a 2-year contract extension at $1.3 million. I think that's a pretty fair contract for what he brings. It's certainly been a decent option for their right side on the third pair. As I mentioned, we had a couple of coaches already fired today. There is dedicated videos on the channel regarding both of those situations if you want a little bit more further analysis. But essentially, just to summarize what happened here, the Anaheim Ducks today announced they've let go of head coach Greg Cronin. After a big improvement, they went to 80 points, 500 hockey, improved. I think it was it 19 or 21 points, I think it was, that they went up this year. It was a significant jump anyways, and he's still let go. According to Elliotte Friedman, it sounds like the Ducks really want to get into the playoffs next year. And I know because his latest podcast was actually recorded before that news broke, and he said he thought that Verbeek liked a lot of things that Cronin was doing, so he wasn't sure what was going to go down there, but he ended up removing him anyway. Essentially, though, the one thing he said was that unless the players kind of force Verbeek's hand with the exit interviews, and that's what I had said in that video, was I don't know that he was a good fit and a good, just didn't. I don't know. I don't think the players overly liked being coached by Greg Cronin, just to put it out there and be simple. I can't confirm that. I have no details to say that's definitely a thing. That's just a vibe I'd get off the team. And based on how you've seen the performances of some of the key players change from the last couple of years. So maybe I'm on something there. I don't know. But Friedman thought that Cronin had a chance to come back unless the players really voiced their displeasure in the exit meetings, and then which we could see change, and that's what happened. So we'll see where things go. The less surprising move today was the Rangers parting ways with Peter Laviolette. I think we knew significant change was coming into Big Apple, and obviously it's easier to fire a coach than to trade a bunch of players. I still think we're going to see trades as well, but based on how the season went, I really think the bigger issue here is Chris Drury. They have a significant culture problem for sure. We're going to talk about the Rangers here a little bit further as well in the video, but essentially after 2 years, Laviolette's gone. We obviously know that there's more coming here for the Rangers, which, like I said, we'll get to. I just want to touch on a couple of the quick items here first, and we'll jump back here to New York. The couple of injury updates for the playoffs. The Lightning today confirmed that Oliver Bjorkstrand, one of their deadline acquisitions, is not going to be able to play in the first round due to injury. So he's out. Gabriel Landeskog of the Avalanche is not in the lineup for the Avalanche tonight for their Game 1 matchup with the Dallas Stars, which, of course, is on the road in Dallas. There's some speculation that he may play Game 3 at home in Colorado. I don't know why or what the reasoning, rationale, it wasn't really mentioned. All I know is that Coach Jared Bednar was quoted as saying that yesterday, at least, that Landeskog was an option to play, but he's not playing. So we don't really know what that means unless we get further comments from it. But it's just that he's not in the lineup here tonight. So, and we'll see now in Ottawa as well. They've recalled goalie Levi Merilainen. The Belleville Senators they still have 1 or 2 games left, I think, but they know for sure they're out of the playoffs now, so they're going to let the other goalies play, and Merilainen can come up and be the third goalie for Ottawa. There's some speculation as well, because it's fair to say that he outperformed Anton Forsberg for chunks of the year when he was up earlier in the season. I can't say for certain, but there's some that think that he may even back up Linus Ullmark in to start the series. So we'll see. But he's with the team and will be an option to play or back up should they feel they need to go that route. Of course, Ullmark will always have the first net. He'll have first right to play here unless they feel like they have to make a change. So we'll see where things go on that front. Now back to New York, as I mentioned. With the coaching change that come today, already some speculation about who could be the new coach, and lots of further speculation from Elliotte Friedman on this podcast that came out today as well. So a few coaching name suggestions from Vince Mercogliano as well, who covers the Rangers. He says that he's been told by multiple sources that Chris Drury's first choice for a head coach, if he could get his way, would be Mike Sullivan. Of course, Mike Sullivan coaches the Penguins. He's not available. Sullivan was asked about his future at the Penguins' end of season media availability, and he said his full intention is to be back coaching next year unless he's told differently. So, we don't have reason to think right now that Dubas is going to let him go. He had signed a longer-term contract. I think it's fair to say that it's more of the roster than anything else that's the problem in Pittsburgh, but at some point they're going to need a fresh voice there. He's been there forever, right? It's just a matter of how long you let it go. But just to say that basically if Drury could get his way because of his connections to the coach, that he would love to have Sullivan. If there's any way he became available, he would go right to the top of the list. John Tortorella's name has been out there as well. Is there any chance we can get another go-around of Torts with the Rangers? I'm not really sure he's what they need, but he's certainly a demanding coach, a fiery coach. And if Chris Drury thinks that he needs that, maybe he goes and explores that. I'm not sure. I've seen multiple reporters suggest that at the very least they wouldn't rule it out. Michael Pekka, who's with the team already, maybe it's believed he's going to get some consideration here as well. But at the same time, the general consensus is that they're going to want an experienced coach. They still think they can make a few changes and try to get back to win now mode with the current, at least, whoever stays, but the group of veterans that are signed longer term. So we'll see. On that front, Elliotte Friedman made some interesting comments on his podcast, basically to kind of summarize, saying essentially the culture feels broken, and he's not sure if a new coach can go in there and win with the way things are. Like, they need to make some wholesale changes, and what's expected here is like as they talk to these players as the season ends, they're going to have conversations about, can they move past everything that happened this past year? Can they move on from it? Or do they really need to move these players out? We've already heard from Mika Zibanejad saying he plans to exercise his contract. We know Chris Kreider, it sure looks like he plans on leaving based on the fact that a lot of people feel he quit on the team. And we know that he took the final game puck of the last game as well. So that kind of got people talking. So there's going to be changes. There's no doubt. We've heard about K'Andre Miller. We've heard about some other names too, even to some degree Alexis Lafreniere, who's probably less likely to go, but his name has been out there by some of the Ranger reporters wondering if he needs a fresh start. So we're curious to see what happens, but as Friedman alluded to, they need to make a conscious effort to change the culture here before they can really have anybody go in there and have any serious chance to win. But the belief is that they're going to try to kind of turn things around quickly and hope to get back to the winning ways here as soon as possible. A few things out of Detroit that Friedman talked about on his podcast as well. Hard to say exactly what we're going to see out of Steve Yzerman this offseason, but he kind of talked about some of the things that he tried to do last year but didn't happen, or even throughout this year, and it might give you a kind of an indication of what he's going to continue to try to do. For one, it does sound like there's a good chance Patrick Kane comes back. I know based on Kane's end of season media availability, he said there was mutual interest to continue the relationship and to re-sign. So we'll see if that happens. But either way, I don't know if that's a game breaker one way or another. But Detroit was in very much on Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault last offseason. I think more so on Stamkos. Of course, the connection there, Yzerman knows Stamkos well from their time in Tampa. But of course, Detroit fell short of getting him signed. But he did go out and try to make a big swing to bring a guy like him in. They also did talk to Buffalo this year about trading for Dylan Cousins before that deal ended up going down with the Senators for Josh Norris. The Buffalo Sabres were looking at a player in return of Marco Kasper, and Yzerman did not want to pull the trigger on that, which is why the deal never happened. I can understand Buffalo's request. They need a decent young center coming back. And, obviously Kasper looks like he's a real good up-and-coming center, so I can understand the need there. But in Detroit's case, they give up Kasper for Cousins. I don't know that long-term, do they get better? Like, they get a player with more experience who might have a potential to give you a little boost short-term. But long-term, it's probably not great. Ideally, you want to have both of them, and Kasper had a really good season. So, that's the reason why that never happened. But at the end of the day, it's fair to say that they need to try to find a way to move a few veteran players out. Some of these contracts that Yzerman has brought in has not worked. It's not going to be easy to do. And they're definitely going to be looking for help down the middle, and they seriously need help on the blue line. For sure. It seems like goaltending, they got a couple goalies under contract now. I don't know if they're sticking with that. I mean, they brought back Mrazek. They've got Talbot. They got Kosa on the way up. Are they going to run with that? Time will tell. But hard to say what the Yzer plan holds. It's been a long time. There's got to be pressure there. And we'll see. But expect some changes. And we'll see if he takes any big swings like he tried to do over the past year. In Buffalo, we know that the Sabres are, the longest playoff drought in the NHL. I believe it's the longest playoff drought in pro sports, if I'm not mistaken. And Friedman thinks there's going to be potential big changes coming to the front office. Now, he said that doesn't necessarily mean that Kevin Adams is going to be let go. It could be more of a case of Kevin Adams' staff being adjusted and some changes around him, some more experienced guys brought in to work with him, or even a possibility that if Adams maybe could have a change in title. He mentioned that as well. Now, I honestly think it's possible that there's changes with Adams. Adams has known Pegulas a long time and has got a good working relationship with them. I would think that there's a better chance he'd be reassigned than be fired. So we'll see. But accordingly, after their end-of-season media availability, it sure feels like Lindy Ruff isn't going anywhere. I think that's pretty safe to say after one season back. Seems like he's got a big voice there, so that's not going to be something we're going to see. But with Adams, Adams has a meeting coming up with ownership here in a couple of days after the long weekend, so we'll probably have a better idea next week if there's going to be changes. If we don't hear of him being let go, say, by next week, then he's definitely going to be back, and it's going to be a matter of how do they change his staff around him to bring in some help or different voices to kind of help make better decisions and move things along. Because obviously it feels like there's a lot that needs to be done there. Now, I know that the Sabres were good down the stretch, but as like a lot of people have said before, I see teams sometimes get overconfident with what they see at the end of the season. You got to remember, when they know that playoffs are lost, there's no hope lost. Like it's gone. You can't do it now. The pressure goes out the window. So these players tend to play a little looser, a little freer, and sometimes they get better results. And you can't stack that up as being an improvement and getting kind of too high of hopes. Where were you at when the chips were down, right? They weren't getting it done, and they have to avoid these massive losing streaks, right? If the Sabres can have without having like a 10-plus game losing streak, like you can't recover from that. It's too much. Now, Friedman also mentioned that there's been some speculation because he's talked to a lot of teams that are kind of in the goalie market, and that there is belief that UPL, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, is likely going to be available, and that decent chance that he moves. So we'll have to see about Luukkonen. As far as other names go, I mean, there's some that wonder about Alex Tuch. There's some that are wondering what the contract situation is going to be with JJ Peterka. I don't think there's any chance they move Peterka. They were getting calls on him, but At the end of the day, their price was going to be way too high, which means they really don't want to do that kind of deal. But Luukkonen seems like the most likely. I would say Byram to some degree, but there is some talk and speculation that it could be more as well. But a lot of that is going to be determined, I think, by who's running the club, and we'll know that better than next week. Philadelphia was mentioned by Friedman as a team to watch when it comes to offer sheets. He feels like Danny Briere, like the Anaheim Ducks, and Pat Verbeek really want to make a big move to try to get in the playoffs next year, and that, having as much draft capital as they have and being in the spot with their cap, that they will be a team to watch for offer sheets. He says that there's belief around the league that there could be more offer sheets this year after what happened between St. Louis and Edmonton and how well that's worked out this year. And he feels that Philly is, from what he's being told, is a team to watch when it comes to that they would be expected to make a noise, be noisy in that regard, especially around a young centerman. Center being their prime optimal position. They have all their picks for 2026, and of course they have lots for 2025 as well. So obviously the 2026 ones will be the ones that would be given it for compensation if they were successful. So we'll see. Like we've talked before about some potential targets. Hard to say exactly who they go after, but don't be surprised if they try to pull that off. I know in Nashville as well, another interesting team to watch this summer. The comments from Andrew Burnett certainly made it sound like he's not sure if he's going to be back coaching. Listening to the players, it sounds like there's some that believe that, not necessarily that the coach has to go, but there needs to be changes, I think, within how they play within some of the systems. So I know just Brunette didn't seem to have a lot of confidence to me in his voice when he was, especially near the end of his media availability. So we'll see what happens there. But Barry Trotz at the same time feels like he didn't want to lose Brunette, didn't feel it was fair, that it wasn't his issue with the roster, that was more on him, and he's going to try to fix that. They're going through meetings trying to determine who wants to be here versus who doesn't. They had a chance to trade O'Reilly. There was offers from Toronto and Ottawa. O'Reilly didn't want to go anywhere, so he wants to see this thing through since he signed there and gave a long-term commitment. We know Marchessault and Stamkos are used to winning, and certainly didn't have the year they were hoping for, but we don't have any reason to think for sure that they want out. But there's going to be calls, there's no doubt. But for right now, the big thing that we're not sure of in Nashville is whether or not we'll see a coaching change. That's going to be the interesting part. That very well probably won't be confirmed because Barry Trotz is not speaking to the media until next week. So that seems like as well, he probably wants to speak more to the players and have time to think about all of their answers before he makes any firm decisions. On Boston, certainly a lot of talk around the possibility of Jeremy Swayman. Whether or not he's going to be back or not, he's most likely coming back. I think a trade for Swayman obviously would be difficult, not impossible, and something that the Bruins want to be careful with. But Friedman does say on his podcast he believes that because of the year Boston had, that they're going to be getting a lot of calls on Swayman. Now, not saying that they're actively shopping him. He's not saying they want to get rid of him. But his trade protection that he negotiated in his long-term deal that seemed to drag on forever last offseason doesn't kick in until next year. So he's not old enough for that to be applicable yet. So he's got another season to go before he has any say over where he ends up. So with that in mind, they could trade him wherever they want it right now without his consent. So if they were going to make a move, it probably would be best to do it this summer if they're going to do it. But then what happens? Are they going to turn to Korpisalo to be the starter? Is there any chance to get a starting goaltender back that they feel more comfortable with? Friedman believes there's a pretty good chance that if they still believe in Swayman, because that's the question, is do they believe in him or not? If they don't, and they feel like his contract situation really impacted the room, and if it affected his relationships, and if the team doesn't believe in him anymore, then there's a good chance that they will have enough conversations that maybe he gets traded. However, if they still believe in him and think he can get back to being the goalie that they signed him to be, and obviously want him to be, that there's a pretty good chance that they'll tell him to try to forget everything, block it all out, just have a good summer of training, come back next year. What are the odds that you're having a bad year 2 years in a row? You got to obviously put in the work to overcome everything and to get better, but that it's more of a reset, and you still believe in him to be that guy. But that's the thing that we don't know with Boston is, do they have that belief in him or not? And you know darn well that when teams don't have success, they're going to be getting lots of calls about some of their top players asking if they're going to be available. Do you want to make changes? Teams would love to probably get their hands on him and hope that he can rebound and become the goalie for them that they thought they would be in Boston. So hard to say what happens with Swayman with the Bruins, but do expect to hear probably a lot of rumors that they're getting a lot of calls on his availability, and whether or not there's some trade propositions popping up here and there. Whether or not it happens is hard to say. But as we get closer to the draft, I suspect his name will be out there some as well. San Jose and Mike Greer also made mention on another quick note, which I'm not going to get into a lot here in this video, but I do plan to talk about it a little further here over time as we talk more about the draft. But Mike Greer, the GM of the Sharks, who has the best chance at getting first overall pick again this year, did say that he would be more likely to trade the pick this year than he would have been last year. He said the draft, essentially is very likely to be Matthew Schaefer first overall, and then it's very forward heavy. So sounds to me like he would, he said that basically he's not saying that it's going to be easy to get it done. He said it would have to be a significant deal. And, he referenced a couple of other trades we've seen in other sports where the first overall pick was moved, and it was a substantial return. So, he said that when he had to pick last year for Celebrini, that he did get some pretty substantial offers, but nothing that really made him stop in his tracks and seriously, really think about it. But this year, he said it would be more likely that he would be willing to consider that if a team wants to offer up a deal to really kind of knock its socks off. So, that's something that could be in play. And, of course, once we know the draft lottery outcome, will be determined if that's more of a talking point or not, because then we'll know, obviously, who has that spot to pick. So, interesting to see. We could have a very interesting draft this year. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.